Hello and welcome back to Body Joy. This is week number 10. This is Alexandra with our lesson this week, which is on easeful living. This is our last habit. Woohoo! It's really the icing on the cake. It is the most subtle of the habits, and it's pretty much the best. Saved it for last, right? When we look at easeful living, really this quote here sums it up for me to the point. One of my yoga teachers, John Friend, who is the founder of Anusara Yoga, he said once, stressors will never go away, but distress will. And for me, this is truly the essence of easeful living. Easeful living can be easily seen in contrast to stressful living. When you see somebody on the street and they say, well, hey, how are you? And your response goes something like this. Oh man, I'm so busy and it's all too much and I'm freaking overwhelmed and oh my God, you have no idea what happened last week, and thoughts and words like that come up for you. You're pretty much in stressful living mode and you are aligning to stress. Instead, if you were to say, well, I have a lot going on, but I'm in the flow and I'm feeling pretty great and I'm actually really excited about what I'm working on, it becomes more easeful. That is a sign that you feel deeply connected to your actions. And maybe we are not saying these stressful responses in public. Maybe we say something just like, oh, fine, thanks. Or no, I'm good. And we just drop that line to the person asking. But really deep inside, we're thinking, man, I just have so much going on. I have so much to do and I'm kind of freaking out. Or maybe we admit to our partner that our orientation and perception of life is one of stress. And so I find it so refreshing when somebody sincerely and duly says, when I ask them, how are you? And they say, I'm feeling really awesome. I had a bunch of really difficult things happen in my life, but hey, I'm feeling actually really great about myself. And how often do we truly hear that? Like as a general society, I think we're really programmed to live in a stress-responsive life. And it becomes very easy to, we can just say, I'm good. But really what that means is like, hey, I don't want to look deeper. I don't really want to show you my emotions, or I don't want to show you how I am and how I'm feeling right now. The habit of easeful living is closely linked to meditation. While meditation is more an action of sitting on your cushion and practicing, easeful living becomes a more day-to-day thing that we do in all our action. So stress can be seen as contraction. And easeful living is expansion. So it goes back to this pulsation that we've been talking about, that pulsation of life. Sometimes things contract and sometimes things expand. And we now know that our perception is actually changing our physiology. Scientists have actually studied this. And it's a big deal. As yogis, we have known for so long that however we perceive things, it will show up in our body. But science is finally coming around thousands of years later and finds out the same thing. And we know that positive thinking and having an optimistic attitude towards life affects the way we experience stress, and it affects our decision making. It affects the way we show up at home, at work, for ourselves. And so this easeful approach to life is truly an attitude with which we can approach anything. And the cool thing about that is it doesn't take any time. It just requires a moment of recognition and awareness and us shifting into a different mindset. So what does positive thinking really mean? Positive thinking does not mean that you keep your head in the sand and ignore life's less pleasant situations. Not at all. Positive thinking simply means that you approach the unpleasant situations in your life in a more positive and productive way. And that is what really shifts your outlook in life and what makes you perceive the difficult situations in a completely different light. So positive thinking equals productive problem solving, really. It is kind of the attitude of, is your glass half empty or is your glass half full? Then we really have to ask ourselves, well, why do we want to think positively? Why do we want to have this attitude of ease, not stress? So if you look at it simply from the body perspective, stress closes our body in. If you notice, if you ever pay attention to a time when you are in a stressful experience, what does our body do? It closes in. Our shoulders are rounding forward. Our arms come more inward. We may be crossing our arms in front of our chest. We're dropping our shoulders. We create tension in the neck. Everything feels tight. There's this physical contraction that's happening in our body with stress. And it's kind of really cool. The power of yoga asanas, so the power of yogic postures, is really opening the physical body so that actually the physical body then is saying in a stressful response is like, hey, I'm not contracting because you've worked really hard in your yoga asanas to keep your posture really open. And because the body isn't contracting, your mind is also not contracting as well. So if you happen to be a yoga enthusiast and you really like to go to yoga class, this is one of the things that yoga is doing for you. It simply opens up your physical body. It also opens up your subtle body and your nadis, so that when stress comes, the body has actually less ability to contract into itself. When you're in a stress response, you're not really connected to your higher purpose, your higher calling, to the guidance of spirit. Pretty much pranamaya kosha, emotional body, intellectual body, they shut off. They shut down, or they close and block themselves. And the flow can't happen. And it gets the sense of like, oh, like, I don't know, I'm just not really doing what I'm supposed to be doing, sort of a feeling. That's what stress does to you. In a stress response, we repeat our poor mental past thoughts, things that are stored in our body as past emotions. They just go into this pattern of like repetition, very annoying. Whereas when we're in ease, there's like this openness, this beginner's mind, that creativity that can flourish. And all of a sudden we feel full of possibility and full of inventiveness. Stress shuts down our emotion. Ease plugs us into our intuition. Stress shuts down your bliss body. Ease enables us to access our bliss body, to be really open. It's kind of like when you're in a place of ease, there's a sensation of emptiness that's full at the same time. So with ease, we plug into this deeper knowing, this deeper wisdom, this deeper connectedness within our bodies and minds. If you ask me, I think the stakes are really high, like really high. If you look at it from the genes perspective, turns out Western science has found that our perception turns on and off genes. Many of us have genetic predispositions, right? So for some of us that may be cancer, for some of us that may be an immune disorder, Alzheimer's, heart disease, whatever that may be. And by us actually simply shifting into a positive mindset towards life, we are actually turning off those bad genes. And if we're staying in optimism, we're turning on the good genes. I mean, this is just another example of how high the stakes are here. So how can we do that? We will be simply aligning ourselves to an experience of deep body joy. When we align ourselves to things like love, to gratitude, to faith, to interconnectivity, a positive outlook in life, trust, faith, all of those things turn on our positive genes. And if we align to fear and anger and all those negative emotions, that grief, that lethargy, that anything heavy in our body, if we choose to turn our attention and attitude towards that, then our bad genes get turned on. And guess what life was going to look like then? I don't know, it doesn't sound like very fun to me. So we have to see that we have a choice here. We have a choice to choose how we want to respond to situations, to people, to work, to any situation we find ourselves in life. Easeful living is a practice. When we practice easeful living, our lives start to shift. We start to trust more, and with that trust comes faith. Faith in yourself as a person, faith in yourself as a mom, maybe as an entrepreneur, yourself as a lover. There's just this deep sense of connectedness and knowing. So instead of going into this, oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed, I have so much to do, and I can't believe what just happened, I am starting to see the opportunity in everything. So instead of seeing that glass half empty, I'm going to see half full glasses everywhere I turn. The air is clean to breathe. I have enough. I have enough food. I have enough money. My kids have enough. My kids are enough. I have learned enough. I have everything that I need. That state of attitude is truly an attitude of easeful living. And the thing about this is it's not just a mindset thing. It's an actual experience in the body, a physiological response in the way you experience that physical being you carry around. So there's one important distinction that we need to make here. Easeful living does not mean we don't ever feel sad or angry or annoyed or frustrated or afraid or worried or whatever that negative emotion is that may be coming up. Easeful living simply means that instead of pushing those negative emotions away, ignoring them or acting out on them, we start embracing them. How does this feel in my body? Oh, I'm feeling grief. How does that feel? Oh, I'm feeling sad. How does that feel? Where does that sadness want to lodge in my body? Oh, let me do a body scan. Oh, wow, it's this grief, it just wants to settle in my lungs. Oh my goodness. Oh, I have all this anger. I feel all this like pressure in my liver area. What are you trying to tell me, feeling? What are you trying to tell me, emotion? What am I supposed to learn? Where do you want me to pay attention? So when we are in this easeful living space, we step into a completely non-judgmental relationship to our feelings. We step away from the judgment and we step more towards observation. So the essence of what I was just talking about is we allow ourselves to feel fully and completely, whether that's a good thing, like a good emotion, or a bad emotion. And when we do that, we will notice that it changes. Oh, wow, I'm feeling angry. Wow, I'm getting hot in my body. Oh my God, like all the energy is rising to my head. Oh my God, I'm about to explode. Oh, I'm breathing. I'm taking a breath. I'm taking another breath. And then another one. Wow, now the anger is kind of subsiding a little bit. Wow, it's dropping again into my chest and down into my feet. Wow, oh, it's much less now. Oh, and now I'm feeling like cool again. Oh, okay, peace of mind's back. So we tap into this feeling in the body and putting words to it. Does it feel contracting? Does it feel painful? Is it hurting? Is it changing? Oh, is it expanding again? No, it's contracting. Oh, now it's opening again. Oh, it's feeling light again. I'm feeling good. So when we are present to that kind of a journey with our emotions, what happens is that we actually digest the emotion. In contrast to when we turn away from that emotion, which is our natural response. You know, many people, they cannot sustain the intensity of negative emotions. So what do? They're like, oh, I'm feeling this? No, I don't think so. I don't feel that. And they push it away. And then it gets stored in the tissues of your body. So this is, according to Ayurveda, emotions that are not looked at or recognized get stored in the body. And as I said, the typical thing is that we're running away from the negative emotions, and those then get stored in our tissues as mental and emotional armor. We remember armor means undigested food stuff, or actually simply undigested stuff. So later that will show up as feeling wacko, or feeling off, or exploding for no reason, with it being moody, having mood swings, getting angry. And it's like, where's that coming from? What's coming from your tissues, from past experiences that have not been looked at or recognized? So when we step into easeful living, we learn to be in the presence of everything that is. We learn to drop judgment. We learn to like all of the emotions, whether we label them as good or bad or right or wrong. So I'm often using this a metaphor with people or with clients. And I always imagine, when there's a knock on the door, we open the door and there's a guest standing outside. And the guest is named Joy. We say, "Oh, hello, Joy. It's so great to see you. Well, why don't you come in and have a cup of tea?" We'll sit them down in our beautiful chair. We make sure they're comfortable, and we'll ask them what they would like, and bring them some tea, and we hang out and we chat and we have a dandy old good time. And then there's another knock on the door. And you open the door, and there's grief. And we're like, "Oh my God." And we slam the door shut. And we don't want to have anything to do with that. But instead, if we could open the door and say, "Oh, there's Grief. Hi, Grief. Well, why don't you come in? Would you like a cup of tea?" We sit him down in our nice chair, make sure that Grief's comfortable. We go and get a nice cup of tea, hang out with Grief for a little while, make sure that he feels welcome. And then say, "Well, Grief, it was great hanging out with you for a little while, but now I'm actually going to hang out with Joy again." And it's kind of making that choice of who you want to hang out with. Everybody's fine. You're not judging anybody. Joy is not better than Grief, or vice versa. It's just that it's not so pleasant to hang out with Grief. And but Grief wants to be recognized and wants to be welcomed too. It wants to know that it's part of your family. And so you make sure that Grief is welcome. But then you choose to hang out with Joy. And so that's the practice. When we start to pay deep attention to how our feelings affect our physiology, we can actually start feeling how food or emotions or thoughts resonate with our bodies. Do certain foods, thoughts, emotions, feelings make us feel more alive or dull? Or do they make us feel more awake and present? So I have this perfect example. When I was getting divorced, I remember standing in the kitchen one day filled with so much anger I had never experienced before. And I knew standing in this kitchen, I was like, wow, if I don't do something right now, I'm going to demolish this entire apartment. And luckily at that point in time, I had already practiced a few years of yoga, and I was together enough in my mind to say, you know what, I don't want this. I feel all this anger. And as I tuned into my body, I could feel chemicals being released that were toxifying my whole system. And I remember having this, like, part of my brain was so clear, and it was like, you don't want this. You don't want these chemicals in your body. No, you just spent the last 5 years cleaning up your entire physiology. You do not want this. And I said to myself, okay, fine, I'll do an experiment. And I went into my yoga room, sat down, and I said to myself, anger, you're here. I recognize you. Now I choose love. Thank you, anger. Now I choose love. Thank you, anger. Now I choose love. Thank you, anger. Now I choose love. 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 And it took only 15 minutes, maybe 30 minutes maximum. And I could feel my whole internal response shifting and changing. It was like these, whatever chemicals were being released, oxytocin, I don't know, something that made me all of a sudden feel like, wow, I feel great again. I feel love for everyone and everything, including my husband that left me. And it was this beautiful example of how, by simply through choice and embracing your feelings, you can shift into a completely different attitudinal space. Attitude will also greatly influence how we age. For some of us, aging isn't all that exciting. You're getting old and wrinkled and no use, and you can't do as much anymore as you want to do, blah, blah, blah. But then we start to realize that when we get more attuned to the body and the feelings in our body, when we start to tune into our subtle physiology, we start to feel more connected, more alive, more happy, more joyful. And all of that other stuff that is associated with aging, we start not to care about that all that much anymore. It's like, wow, I'm happy. Who cares if I have another wrinkle on my face? wow, I feel connected and truly tapped into spirit. Oh my God, who cares if I have a little cellulite on my legs? Or whatever that is about aging, or I don't mind if I can't run 30 miles anymore in a day. I can only run 10 miles. I feel connected and I feel peaceful and I feel together. Then all of a sudden aging takes on a whole different level. So you remember, I am really into pulsation these days, and it truly is so. I don't think it's a fad. I think that pulsation is just this pulsation is a metaphor for life, for so many things. Nothing's ever static. Things are always changing. So in this pulsation of feeling truly happy and easeful, there's this pulsation between bliss and suffering. And we pendulum back and forth. And you get to choose which way the pendulum swings. You can actually make it halter or stop at some point. And decide like, hey, how much bliss do I want to experience? How much suffering do I want to experience? And you might notice, if you look at this picture, you're pulsating back and forth for a while, but then something happens, say your parent dies, or your child had an accident, or whatever, or you had a ski accident, or whatever that thing is, and you find yourself in suffering. And you're like in this pulsation more towards the suffering side. And you're like, oh my God, I just don't feel good and I don't know how to get out of it. And then something happens, you digest it and you're going back to this pulsation. You learn a little bit more. You do your habits. You do some meditation. You go into a community group and hang out with people who you really love. And you find yourself, oh, now I'm pulsating more towards the bliss state. Wow, okay, that's cool. Something bad happens? No, I'm going to choose to stay in this bliss state. So it is truly a choice whether you want to suffer or you want to be blissful. And we should probably make the distinction between painful and suffering. So pain we cannot avoid. We all are going to experience pain in our lives. That's just part of living in a dualistic natured society, or not society, but a dualistic world. There's always good, bad, right, wrong, dark, light, good, bad, whatever, There's always these opposing poles. So pain is an opposing pole to, say, happiness or something. So there's always going to be pain and somewhat some feeling happiness, But pain doesn't have to come along with suffering. And that is different. We can have pain, and when we're present to the pain, we don't suffer. So when you are in a painful situation in your life, like your parent dying or having an accident or whatever, having a positive outlook in life will pull you away from pain it will pull you away from suffering, but so that you can experience the pain with positivity, if that makes any sense. We can be in victim mentality. Victim mentality is when you feel like this. Oh, the weather is not good. Oh, what am I going to do? Now my Sunday sucks because it's raining. Or the people around me, they're so challenging. Oh my God, I don't know. And my boss, oh my God, he's the biggest ass in the world. And my coworkers are so difficult. Oh, and I can't do anything about that. That's victim mode. And I know most of you are probably not deeply steeped in victim mode, but I encourage you to look quite deeply, because I am sure there are some areas in your life where your language and your thought patterns are such that you are thinking you can't do anything about that. So in my example, I surely am not a person who hangs out a lot in victim mode, but there was a couple areas in my life where I felt completely out of control and I felt like I couldn't change anything. And one of them was finding a partner. And I felt like, well, you know what? Finding a partner is so dependent on the other person wanting it too. How can I possibly have control over the outcome of it? How can I possibly direct the outcome of it? So there's often that I felt like I was going into this funk and sadness and self-pity about, oh yeah, I don't have a partner, in complain mode. So that wasn't, and I'm sure that each one of us has one area in our lives where we are like just complaining all the time. And we might not even realize it for a while. And then you're like, oh, why do I keep complaining about this if I don't like it? Why don't I just change it? And there's certain benefits that come to being in victim mode. First of all, you get a lot of attention and validation from other people. Oh, poor Alexandra, she doesn't have a partner. Oh, we have to help her out. Da, 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 da. So you're getting lots of attention, and that can be very gratifying for a person. The other thing is you don't have to take risk. When you feel like a victim, you tend to not take action. And then you don't have to take a risk. So you don't have to also not fear to be rejected or to fail. The other thing is you don't have to take a heavy responsibility. You're basically free from responsibility. Because if you start taking responsibility for your own life, man, that's hard work. And you have to make difficult decisions. And it's just heavy sometimes. And so if you're a victim, you don't have to do that. Other people will do it for you. Oh, how easy. So like Richard Bach says here, if it's never our fault, we can't take responsibility for it. And if we can't take responsibility for it, we'll always be its victim. And how much is really going to change in your life if you're in victim mode? Well, nothing at all. Because if you are in victim mode, you're not going to take action at all. You're just wallowing in the sensation of like, oh, I'm so poor. Oh, things are never going to change. Oh, I'm never going to feel better in my body. Oh, I have this disease. It's not going to get better. Oh, yeah, I'm just never going to walk again. Like that. And so what's on the other side of victim is responsibility. And so not in the negative way of, oh my God, I have so much responsibility, but more in the sense of the ability to respond. Responsibility. How do I want to perceive this? How do I want to respond? Do I want to respond with a glass half full or half empty? What's the opportunity here in this mess that I find myself in? What can I do to shift it? One very good example is actually the stock market crash, where many people were moving into victim mode because they had lost all their money. And what happened to the people who moved into victim mode? They stayed poor. And those people who said, well, heck, that happened to me. Now what's the opportunity for me in here? They actually became very successful in business, and they used that downfall as an opportunity to get back up and get bigger. And that is what it truly means to be a co-creator of your life and to create ease in your life. Because if you stay fallen down, well, you're not going to have a very easeful time. You're going to crawl through life. One of the things that comes up in my practice somewhat frequently, and what I observe many people talk about who can't heal, is this identification with disease. I find that when people identify with a certain disease they were diagnosed with by a Western doctor, what they are really saying is, I choose to identify with suffering. So say you have cancer, and you're like starting to identify with a person who has cancer. Well, what happens to your habits is that, well, I have cancer, I can't do anything about it, and your habit's going to go probably downhill. And then your appearance is going to be much worse. You're going to be looking more pale. You're going to be looking very sick. Instead, what we can say is like, wow, I have this disease. It's not me, but this cancer thing is happening inside of me. All right, well, I am a person who chooses to be whole, happy, and complete. And I'm going to align my habits, and I'm going to be more careful with my habits so that I actually kick that disease in the butt, because it's not very pleasant to have it. And my prediction would be that that person who has that different identification, who is not identified with that disease, but who identifies as the person who is whole and complete, has a much greater chance of recovery and healing as that person who identifies with the label. And so this comes really back to this diagram by James Clear that we looked at, in the beginning of our 10 weeks. It's like, hey, let's choose our identity. Let's choose who we want to be and how we want to show up. And then our habits fall into place and become long-term, really anchored in our being. In Ayurveda, there are some basic rules about how to keep our energies running smoothly. And when our energies are running smoothly, we are going to naturally have a more positive outlook in life. And one of the very important rules here is that we shall not suppress natural urges. So this is what one of the ancient texts has to say. One should not suppress the natural urges relating to urine, feces, semen, flatus, vomiting, sneezing, burping, yawning, hunger, thirst, tears, sleep, and breathing after exertion. We shall not suppress natural urges is the gist of it here. Charaka then goes on to say that a ton of diseases are following if we were to disrespect the natural urges. A bunch of diseases will come from that, big ones too. I would even add to this list here, I would even say that if we suppress the natural urge to speak up or a natural urge to move our bodies, that even leads to a bunch of diseases down the road. You know, the problem is that this sounds all very good, right? Wouldn't we all like to just fart when we need to fart, or burp when we need to burp, or sneeze when we need to sneeze, or yawn when we want to yawn, even if we're in a very important meeting? But generally, we can't really do that when we are, say, at work or out in public. So letting our natural functions run free and wild can be embarrassing. So when we live in a stress response, we live in a box. But when we start to embrace easeful living, we get to see how it opens up those boxes. When we start to embrace easeful living, we get to see how that box opens. And we are starting to drop cultural norms, societal rules, and belief systems that we have successfully ingrained in our brains. So you might be noticing that all of a sudden, maybe that excusing yourself to go to the bathroom, to go to do number 2, is all of a sudden not that big of a deal anymore. But it's like, it's easeful living. Hey, I gotta poop, I gotta go. Hey, I gotta urinate, gotta go. Sorry. Hey, I gotta burp, you burp and you excuse yourself. You know, it doesn't have to be this offensive thing, but just allowing the body to express itself within reason. And as we start to play our growing edges, we might notice that so many people around us are in a stress response to life. And then we practice this easeful living thing, and we're stepping into our body's rhythms, and we're stepping into nature. And we ask ourselves, like, oh my God, how can I do this with all these mad people around me? With all this madness in society? And that's where community becomes really important. Where cultivating new friends and cultivating new connections with people who live on that same trajectory becomes really vital. And where our commitment to a better, more positive outlook plays a vital role. So when I really look at my friends today, many of them are either into yoga or into Ayurveda deeply, because I'm just so entrenched in it. So naturally, my friends are also entrenched in that. And it becomes so easeful because we have that same outlook in life. And it's okay to burp sometimes when we need to. We are free to express ourselves. We are reminding ourselves that we don't have to be in stress response, but we can be easeful. So say something happens and I'm freaking out and I'm calling up my friend and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so freaked out. Instead of them not really knowing what to do, they're just taking a breath with us. They're listening, and I say, hey, look at it from another perspective. Turn back to ease. It doesn't have to be that difficult. So a continued commitment to anchor these easeful living habits and attitudes in place is vital important. To revisit the habits over and over and over again until they are completely anchored in your body and in your mind and in your emotions and in your spirit. And it's just so part of you, you're never going to lose them again. Paying attention to your bodily sensation is key to that journey. We start to notice cascading sensations that our choices create. And when we start noticing them, we can say, oh, well, okay, I'm taking a breath. I'm not buying into that stress. I'm not going to go to that attitude that I'm used to. I'm going to stretch a little bit. I'm going to take a really nice cup of ginger tea. I'm releasing, I'm relaxing. I let the emotion be there. I let my sensation be there. I let my body sensation be there. And I'm not willing to go into that contraction that I'm used to. How can we stay bright inside when life contracts? Isn't that an interesting question? Isn't it normal that when life contracts, we want to contract too? It means our body wants to contract, our mind wants to get really nasty and goes into complain mode. But it really doesn't have to be like this. And in Anusara yoga, it's one of the forms of yoga that I've studied intensely, there's this concept called inner body bright. And the inner body refers to the inside of your experience. So it's basically the energetic blueprint of the physical body. And what happens is that when we breathe in, the outer body typically expands. You can just observe that right now. Take a deep breath in. Observe your outer body expanding. And you take an exhale and notice how your outer body is contracting. By outer body, I simply mean your physical body. So take another deep breath in. Feel your outer body expanding. And then your outer body contracting with the exhale. So now pay attention to the inside of your body, that inner body. So take an inhale. See how the inner body expands too with the inhale. And as you exhale, the inner body is contracting too. So then it would make sense. Wait, I'll just let you feel that for a second. So let's do that again. Inhale, inner body expands. Exhale, inner body contracts. So this is naturally what happens if we don't pay attention. Life expands, we feel expansive. Life contracts, we feel contracted. But instead, there's another option. Try this. So take a deep in-breath, expand your inner body, stay bright inside. And as you exhale, stay bright inside as the physical body contracts over your inner body. We'll do that a couple more times. Take a deep breath in, inner body bright, inner body expands. Keep that expansion and exhale, contract. One more time. Deep breath in, inner body bright. Staying open and bright inside as you exhale and let the physical body contract onto your inner body. So when you keep that inner body bright as the outside contracts, that is your physical bodily way in which you can stay open to the shifts and changes and transformations in your life without freaking out. So when circumstances and situations contract, you can stay open and bright. In Buddhism, there's a concept called shunyata. It's the same as purnatva in yoga. And it refers to the emptiness, but really emptiness is also fullness. Why is that? How does that make any sense? Why is empty full? Because into the emptiness comes the fullness of consciousness. So emptiness holds all the potentiality, all the possibility, all the creativity. And so when we are empty, we are really saying we are open to the possibility of life. We are open to being filled with goodness. We are open to the fullness of consciousness. And that emptiness, it's exciting. It's light. It feels connected. And if we are full of emptiness, full of potentiality, the good things in life start to show up. And the point is that we can program our operating system to operate from a place of bliss and joy rather than suffering. So I say that again, the point is that we can program our operating system to operate from a place of bliss and joy rather than suffering. The word ease. What does the word ease mean? It means sukha in Sanskrit. S-U-K-H-A, sukha in Sanskrit. And for me, the way sukha or ease is expressed in the body by leaning into the back body. So many activities in our lives are about folding forward or going forward. You know, if you think about it, all of our senses are directed to forward. You know, our eyes, our ears are slightly bowed forward, our nose is in the front of the body, our mouth, even our arms go more to the front of the body than the back of the body. So there's a natural leaning forward into our senses. Even the eyes come more out of the socket as we look. But it is not really where our senses want to be. The senses want to be rooted back into the juiciness of our bodies. So by simply doing an action of slightly leaning back, and you can do this right now, whether you're standing or sitting right now, but just lean slightly forward. And it's not like in this picture, I just, that's just a picture that I found, and leaning back. It's not leaning back quite as far as this at all. It's just when you say you're sitting or you're standing, lean a little bit more forward and pay attention to the front of the body and see how that makes you feel. And then, in contrast, just shift your weight backwards a little bit. Take the lower back back, the middle back, the upper back, the back of the head, and bring your mind's eye to the back side of the body and see how that makes you feel. And if you're anything like me, when I lean into the front of the body, I want to do. I don't want to just like make things happen. I want to control things. But when I lean back into the back body, all of a sudden there's this sense of letting go, that sense of presence, the sense of being, the sense of being okay, trusting, and being faithful, that everything's going to be just fine. So by simply taking that bodily action of like, oh, I'm just going to lean back, I'm just going to trust, everything, my whole outlook is changing. I mean, I don't know about you, but I think this is way, way cool. And so when you stand in the grocery store and you notice yourself, oh God, I got to do this and that, and I shall not forget the garlic, and I shall not forget the rosewater. I should get back that rosewater. I've been forgetting it for the last 10 weeks. I need to buy that rosewater. Or whatever it is, Instead, take a breath, lean back, and connect to that spirit body, that back body. Just like, oh, I'm going to just operate out of this. What do I need today? What is drawing to me? Oh, I need to get rose water right. Oh, I shall not forget the garlic. And the whole response is just so much more pleasant and easeful. The nervous system is very closely linked to our minds. They're both very subtle. And the way our nervous system responds to our attitude is significant. So in the autonomic nervous system, there's two branches. There's the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. So our sympathetic nervous system, and you guys might know this, but it can't hurt to learn about it again, is the fight and flight response. And it gets triggered when we are in a stress response. When we are in a stress response, energy resources get pulled away from the core of our being. So it gets pulled away from the organs, and the energy gets redirected to the extremities. Because why? Because we need to flee or we need to fight, and we need all the strength and all the attention we can get into the hands and the feet so we can run fast or fight really strong. But the problem for our bodies is this, that if little energy remains in the organs, our digestion will be off. And then we're not digesting our food well. And then we don't get really good ojas, and we don't get really good strength. When we eat a meal, when we're in sympathetic nervous system response, so when we're in a stress response, our bodies can't really assimilate the food properly. Our digestion is off. Liver can't do its 500 functions as well as it could be if we actually weren't in that response. And then we have to realize that if we are in the sympathetic nervous system side of things and we are in stress, stress creates inflammation. It creates shallow breathing, difficult emotions. It's this cascading series of events. In contrast to that, we have the parasympathetic nervous system. And that gets turned on when we are in an easeful response to life. And energy gets concentrated in our core when we are in the parasympathetic nervous system. And all of our organs will get plenty of food in the form of life force, in the form of prana. And the organs can finally do their job well. The liver can detoxify and do all its 500 functions that it does. The gallbladder can release as much bile as we need to. The stomach can produce the enzymes and acids we are asking for this meal we're going to be eating. And everybody can do their job well. Muscles can relax, tendons can soothe. When the body is at rest, salivation in the mouth is increased. That helps us with breaking down our food. Digestion is better because, again, production of enzymes and acids. Also, sexual arousal is going to be easier. Our libido is going to be easier. And this whole thing of like, oh, honey, I just don't feel like it. That's going to fall away because your body naturally just wants to connect and unite. The defecation muscles are going to be relaxed. So there's no more constipation. So it's often that when people who suffer from constipation, if they simply relax, all of a sudden they can poop every day. How cool is that? I mean, it's like no herbs to be taken, no practices to do, simply freaking relax. So the overall idea here is that ease will become our MO for life. Anything else won't do. Why settle for less? I'll ask you. But I personally don't want to settle for less. I'm going for ease in all areas of my life, whether that's in my relationships, my friendships, my family, my work life, my going out life. If there's any person that is in my life that causes me stress instead of ease, and if that person is important to me, I will have a conversation with them around that to create more ease again, because typically there's some communication issue that is going on. Or if you take the example of my family, it's like my family is really awesome. I really love my family, and I think they're really awesome people. And they used to live in they still live in a very stress-responsive life frame. And I don't buy into it. I don't want it. So I frequently say when I go home, I say, guys, I just can't use this in my life. I don't want this. Either I live with ease and with joy, or I don't hang out with you at all. It's like, what are you choosing? Let's find a way to communicate properly, and let's find a way that serves everybody. And let's be easeful. And life is good. Life's enjoyable. What do the ancient texts have to say? Well, here's a quote from Charak Samhita again. And he says, one who wants to protect the heart and ojas. Remember, ojas is the immune system, the inner strength, the vigor. So one who wants to protect ojas should particularly avoid the causes of the affliction of mind. This is a big statement, all right? Because ojas is actually built from bodily tissues. It's built from your blood and from your red blood cells and from your muscles, your tendons, your ligaments, your fat, your nerves, your reproductive tissue. After that building of all of those tissues comes ojas. And it comes much from our food. It also comes from our breath. It comes from the way we live life. So what were you saying? In order to protect ojas, and we want a really strong ojas, because a strong ojas helps us to withstand stress really well. He says the most important thing is to avoid the causes of the affliction of the mind. So having a positive outlook in life and having a positive attitude and an easeful approach to life is going to have an immensely positive impact on our inner strength, on our ojas. We start to be gurus for ourselves. So when you look at it like the noun guru, it means the imparter of knowledge. It also means the remover of darkness. As an adjective, guru refers to being heavy, and the heaviness refers to heavy with consciousness or wisdom. So by being in this easeful place, we are starting to be our own gurus, and in a sense gurus for other people, because we're going to become really steady within ourselves, really grounded. So when somebody comes in the room and they are less attuned to the natural rhythms of nature, we start to ground them. And the cool thing is we don't even have to do anything for it. We just need to be ourselves. It's like we become a very effective lightning rod for other people who are ungrounded themselves. And they're going to notice. And they're going to say things like, wow, it seems like you're doing so much, but you don't seem stressed. You seem so grounded and together. That's amazing. The other thing that I hear people say is also, oh, when I hang out with you and you're so grounded and together, my habits get better. And when I'm around you, I eat better and I sleep earlier and I just feel better overall. And I tell you, yeah, if you stick with these habits, that's what's going to happen with you too. You're going to magnetically attract those people who appreciate you being so grounded and together. And it's like going back to Indra's net, not spreading the goodness simply by reflecting the essence of who you are. So I want to remind you that one of the most important things that you can do is check in with your body frequently. Take a deep breath. Maybe sit for a minute in quiet if you need it. Start to crave the little moments in silence. Don't zone out in front of the television or behind the computer, but consciously spend time with yourself. Attune yourself to your body. Attune yourself to your deeper needs. And that ease will just arise naturally. So ease is your new MO in life. Already talked about that. What areas, ask yourself this question, what areas of your life are you holding worry, tension, and fear? And I bet you, I know you guys have lived a long time already. Most of you have, been around the block a few times. But I bet you that there's areas in your life where you're still holding worry, fear, and tension. For me, that was for the longest time money. I was like, I didn't feel okay. Although I had a sense of I've always paid my bills and money always came when I needed it, there was this sensation of like, wow, it's not enough. Well, I don't know, I'm not making very much. What am I going to do 5 years down the road? What do I do when I need a car? What do I do if I want to buy a house? Whatever. There was the sensation of like, wow, it's not enough. So that was an area in my life where I was holding worry. And I chose to drop it because it didn't serve me. It created a feeling in my life that was unproductive and not joyful. So ask yourself that question. What areas of your life are you holding worry, fear, and tension about? Maybe it's your children. Maybe it's the health of your children. Maybe it's like you worry about their career or who they're going to be when they grow up. So in which part of your life could you find more ease in? So how does stress and ease compare? When we look at it from the viewpoint of the different koshas, the different shis of our existence. So when we look at it from the physical body, when we're in a stress response, what happens is, well, we're going to have high blood pressure and the brain doesn't function as well. The digestion shuts off. There's pressure in the heart and hardening of the blood vessels. Heart beats more quickly. Body ages faster. We're going to have nightmares. Stress closes the body down. And ease opens it back up. It makes your body look younger, more relaxed. Biological aging process slows down. And then what about the pranamaya kosha, the energy body? When we're in a stress response, breath will definitely get shorter and quicker. Our thoughts are not as clear. Prana is just not flowing. We are no longer in the flow of things. Whereas when we're in an easy response, the breath will get much easier, much deeper. There's like this natural sensation of underwhelm. There's no overwhelm anymore, but underwhelm. How cool can that be? Like, wow, have you ever heard anybody say I'm in underwhelm? Like, I haven't. The big thing is like, oh, I'm so overwhelmed. But really taking a breath, getting to that easeful space. And the habits really teach us how to live in that underwhelmed relationship towards life. Ease carries us into evolution. Stress carries us into devolution. The stress is really a negative momentum of the past. So then we have Manomaya Kosha. That's the emotional body. If we are in a stress response, past thoughts go into recycle mode. I am not worthy. I am not enough. Life sucks. I'm not confident. I'm too busy. Oh, I feel so disconnected. I'm not enjoying myself in life. And old stories repeat over and over and over again. The samskaras repeat over and over and over again. As opposed to when you're in a response of ease, the awake living side flourishes. You're going to start to have an expansive view. And you feel like there's lots of possibilities in inventing the future. There's like these easeful emotions and there's no mood swings and nothing rocky anymore. It just feels pleasant. You wake up and you feel pleasant. It's 3 o'clock and you feel pleasant. It's 5 o'clock and you feel pleasant. And it's 6 o'clock, you're still feeling pleasant. And it's 7 p.m. and you're still feeling pleasant. And it's just this beautiful way of dancing through life. Then we have the Vijnanamaya Kosha, which is the intellectual body. Right? What does stress look like there? Well, it closes down our intuition. We are plugged up. Wisdom can't flow. We don't pay attention to our intuition. We're not making decisions from a plugged-in place. And so decisions will likely not be as wise. But if you're in an easeful response to life, you will have more access into the co-creative field, more access to the pranic wisdom. spiritual wisdom, thought wisdom, access to the co-creative field of the divine. You're open and just ready to play. And then we have the bliss body, Anandamaya Kosha. But when we're in a stress response, it shuts down our spirit. It shuts down the yumminess to life. It shuts down connection. And when we turn into ease, it opens up to a sense of knowing and being okay and being well. So our habits, whatever the habits are that we discussed in the past 10 weeks, they help us really shift into that easeful relationship with our bodies. And how much easier can it be? Well, I just need to go to bed earlier and I'm going to get all these easeful benefits. What do you mean I'm eating an earlier lighter dinner and that's what's going to get me ease? How cool is that? You mean I can just pour some oil in all my orifices and that's going to be creating ease for me? Okay, I'll do it. Easy enough. I'll just do that. And how easy life becomes and how easy your work life becomes, how easy it is going to be for you to raise your children. And it's like nothing can faze you anymore. What would it be like to lose that feeling of stress and step into the flow of ease? What would that feel like? Now, if you're a Pitta, so if you're a very fiery personality, you might say now, well, oh God, if I go into this easeful relationship with life, well, I'm going to lose my edge. And that anger and that frustration and that intensity, hey, that keeps me at the top of my game. And I get a lot of things done when that's the case. And when I'm delegating to other people, they're really doing what I'm going to tell them to do. But the idea is that when we are in a stress response, there's a certain level of addiction to the cortisol response in the body. Yeah, cortisol response means our stress response. It comes then down to trusting that if we choose an easeful response, that we actually will get stuff done and more of it too. And we can get done with more joy. It's really letting go of an addiction to intensity. And by doing that, we are protecting our physiology from hypo and hypothyroidism, from adrenal fatigue, from immune system disorders, from allergies, from heart disease, from cancer, from blah, 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 blah. All of the above. And I want to encourage you to look at all the different pieces in your life where you worry. For some of you, that may be easy to detect. You have like lots of worry. But for some of you, you might have to pause and look a little deeper. It's like, hey, no, my life's pretty good. No, my life's great. But then you pause and you're like, well, actually, there's this thing that I've been like really stressed about. Like really on a subtle level stressed about. And that's the other thing. If you're really coming into a truly easeful response in life, the stressors become subtler and subtler and subtler. So you might not notice them. You might just have a difficult conversation with somebody and it doesn't, outwardly, you're like, okay, I had this difficult conversation. But then later, you're like checking in with your body and I'm like, oh my God, that conversation really affected me and something wants to lodge in my body. I don't want that, Oh, I got to clear something up here. So it's a process like anything, a trajectory, and you will notice that when the outer layers fall off, and you become attuned, you're going to get so attuned to the subtle energies around you, it's going to become really exciting. You pick up on things you would have never picked up on before. How does ease play with action? So as a society, I would say we are used to making decisions, solving problems, and taking action from a place of stress. And I remember that being the MO big time when I was growing up, for myself too, when I was a young adult. And things often felt stressful at home. Stress was kind of like the driving force to get things done, kind of like what I just talked about. But I found that it was only in certain situations. So for example, just before leaving for a vacation, it was kind of that mode of like, okay, let's get stressed so we can get things done and get out the door. What happens when we go into an easeful response, that does not mean that we stop acting. Quite the contrary. What does shift is not the action, or the lack thereof, but what shifts is our internal response to the situation. So coming back to my money example. So for a long time, I was struggling with this idea of okay, I don't have enough money. I don't earn enough. Not that I wasn't okay. I was paying my bills and all that. I had enough food and I always had shelter. And I could always fall back on my parents if that needed to be, but I didn't want to. But I was always under the impression like, wow, my inner environment, the inner operating system that I was running was really one of like, oh, I'm not sure I'm going to make it. I'm going to earn enough money to pay my rent this week. Or am I going to have enough clients to pay my bills? Or da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And it's going on in the mind. And, I just wanted to say vata, because that's what we call when things are circulating around in the mind and we can't get rid of it. And it was really just, I had to take the time to choose over and over and over again that I was in ease, that I was in joy, and then I was okay and I had enough. And it was really a conscious decision. And I had already learned that to some degree, but in a way I was in apprenticeship mode to easeful living. And in the beginning, you just have to keep choosing it, keep choosing it, keep choosing it, until the operating system is reprogrammed and that ease is just showing up for you automatically. So as I said before, I'm sure because you guys have been around the block a few times, you have a sense of this easeful place in your life. I know that when people shift into their 50s, there's naturally more ease coming typically. Definitely when you shift into your 60s, there's like this, like, okay, I don't have to freak out all the time, sort of an attitude. But maybe you will find some areas in your life where you worry. So, and that's just the other day I had a client, she's in her late 50s, and her major worry is that what happens if my husband dies before me? That's her worry. And that's really a stress response on her part. So it's really choosing. Again, it goes back to this choice point of how do I want to experience life? And when you choose that ease, it is really stepping into the awe of life, into the bewilderment of life, into the dance of life. So here's a quote that's a quote by me. Oh my goodness. We are in an easeful response to life when we solve problems, make decisions, and take action in life with an inner response of relaxation. When that inner body is bright, when we feel like, oh, nothing's gripping inside. Oh, I'm a little tense outside maybe. Or maybe like, oh, this is all this intensity from the situation. But like, oh, yeah, I'm relaxed inside. How cool is that? Yes, language. Language, very important to create our reality. Remember this chart from, I think it was the first class we talked about it, where we stepped into this equation of thoughts create words, words create our actions, actions create our habits, habits create our values, and values create our reality. So ultimately our thoughts create our reality, right? And also thoughts create words. So that means also that not only our thoughts, but also our language creates the reality we live in. So language becomes incredibly important. In fact, in Eastern medicine, there's a whole branch of healing that deals with sound. It's called Mantra Shastra, or the teachings of mantra as a form of healing. So I'm sure you have heard the word mantra before, right? Mantra is just a specific sound, word, or phrase that is repeated over and over and over again. And mantras are incredibly powerful, especially when they are chanted in Sanskrit language. And they can create the reality that we want. So a friend of mine recently, she bought a property. And she's been looking for quite some time, a year and a half, and they couldn't find anything, and something always fell through, and even if they had already put an offer in, things fell through. So her astrologer gave her a simple mantra to use while she was visiting the next property that she wanted to get. And she was really excited about it, and she really wanted it. So she used that mantra while she was walking around the property. And sure enough, she did become the owner of that property. And I know that mantra works because this particular astrologer is a friend of mine, and he had given this mantra to several people before, and they had the same effect. Or if I can give you an example of my own life, there's this mantra called Om Namah Suryaya. Om Namah Suryaya, Om Namah Suryaya. And Surya is the sun, no? And so I'm calling to the sun. So every time I'm looking for something and I can't find it, it's like I'm looking. Where is it? It's over here. It should be over there. It should be over there. And if I looked in all the places that I thought it would be and it is not, I'm like, oh God, where is it now? And instead of looking for another 10 minutes or 20 minutes until I find it, I just say, Om Namah Suryaya, Om Namah Suryaya, Om Namah Suryaya, and look around. And all of a sudden this idea pops into my head. Oh, it's in this jacket you were wearing yesterday. Or, oh, look behind the couch. It fell behind the couch. some random thought. And that's the power of mantra. That's the power of words. That's really like incredible, powerful. So we have to watch how we use language, because language creates our reality. How can we get from negative self-talk to positive self-talk? Well, say you are about to go on a new journey. Say you want to go to Morocco. Never been to Morocco, never been outside of the United States. Negative self-talk can be, oh, no, I can't do that. I've never done this before. Nope, it's not going to work. Or the positive self-talk can be, wow, that's a cool opportunity. You mean I get to go to Morocco and learn something new? How cool is that? See how that even just that language around it is opening up the space? Or say you're solving a difficult problem. Maybe your car broke down and you don't have the money to go to the mechanic, and you're trying to figure it out, and it doesn't seem to, it seems like something you could fix or whatever. But you look at the problem and you're like, nah, that's too complicated. Nah, it's never going to work. Nope, too complicated. Or you look at the engine and say, well, let me think about this, like this seems to be the problem. If I tackle it from this angle, it might work. Maybe I should take it from that angle. That could work. I always remember going for a walk with one of my friends when I was still living in Jackson, and I was recounting something that positive that had happened in my life. And one common reaction that I was used to at the time was, in a way, some jealousy. It's like, oh my God, that's what she has going on. Oh, I'm jealous. I want that too. But instead, what she was saying is that, oh, I am so glad for you. And that was a pivotal moment for me of realizing, like, wow, this is a really powerful statement that she's making. She's so glad for me, despite the fact that I have something so amazing and she doesn't. That is really cool. That is true sympathetic joy expressed in words. And then there's a bunch of other examples you can read through the negative self-talk. I don't have the resources. Nah, I'm too lazy. I can't get this done. There's no way it will work. Oh, that's too radical of a change. I'm never going to make that happen. No one bothers to communicate with me. Nobody likes me. I'm not going to get any better at this. This is negative self-talk. And I bet you that all of us have that circling around in our minds. And whatever thoughts and words are circling around in your minds, that's what's going to create your reality. So instead, can we be open and have this amazing outlook in life and see everything as an opportunity? And that's what it comes down to, seeing life as an opportunity and as a curiosity. No matter how much we have going on, we might as well do the things that we have going on with joy and with ease, or don't do them at all. That's my motto in life, quite frankly. And that's the MO I want to live from. Either it's easy and joyful, or I don't do it at all. So here's positive self-talk. Wow, this is an opportunity to learn something new. How cool. I'll tackle that from a different angle. I think it'll work. Necessity is the mother of invention. I'm going to make it work. Oh, I wasn't able to fit that into my schedule, but I can re-examine some priorities and make that fit. Well, I can try to make that work. Hey, let's take a chance. That sounds really exciting. Let's do it. I'll see if I can open the channels of communication and see what's up. I'll give it another try. I'll definitely check that out. And find your own example. Find a couple of examples where you are actually talking negatively in your brain about something in your life. I look forward to hearing about it. This is one of my favorite subjects, language and the mind. So what do we create with our thinking? Before words always comes thought. That's just how it goes. Without a thought, we can't form words. And when our thoughts are aligned with what we want, our speech will also align with what we want. And what we think and what we say is what's going to be attracted to us. People, situations, jobs, conversations, coaches, anything really. Our thoughts create our reality. So what it then comes down to is training your mind to think in a certain way. And so that's it. You're training your mind to think in a certain way. And how can you do that? Simply through conversation with wise people, through education. So reading mind-altering books. So through aligning with the people who already have the thinking that you want to have. Because you can just watch how they're reacting, what they're saying, what's important to them, what questions they ask themselves. What's the mode of operandum? One of the biggest things that I've learned in the past year is, instead of going into frustration, go into curiosity instead. And that keeps channels open. And that took me quite some practice. In certain areas of my life, I get very frustrated. I don't act it out, but I feel frustrated inside. And that blocks my whole flow of creativity. And so instead, what I do is I'm aligning to curiosity. Well, what can I learn from this? What do I need to do? How cool is that? So the other question then becomes is how willing are we to let go of our dense identification with our body and move more deeply into our subtle awareness and into the connected field? Let's see if I can find this picture. No, I didn't put it. I don't know if you remember that picture with the dense body and the subtle body. Do you want to align more with the density and the heaviness, or do you want to align with the light body? In a stressful living situation, we have a more dense, simplistic, and heavy view of the world. We basically only see the bottle, but not the genie inside the bottle. But when we start to attune more subtly to ourselves, we start to see genie. So we don't just see the bottle, but we see genie inside. So what beliefs are you holding that keeps you from seeing deeper? What are the micro habits that cloud your consciousness? What are the choices you can make now to wake up more fully? Can you open more? Connect more to flow, create more possibility. So how would you get to a place of ease? Really, there's 3 very important components how to get to ease. And it always, like anything, it starts with awareness. Because if you are not aware of what's happening, well, you can't shift it. Second step is you have to be willing to shift it, because maybe at some point you have an awareness. So say you really like to watch television and television and that specific series, and you really want that, but you're aware that actually watching that television from 9 to 11 at night is not good for you, and you have that awareness that you're then groggy in the morning, but you don't have a willingness to change it. It's not gonna change. So willingness is a key component, and only if you're willing, things can shift. If you're aware but not willing, nothing's going to change. So say you're willing, what you can then do is take action. And what kind of action? Well, you can watch your thoughts, you can watch your language, you can maybe hire a coach, maybe you can do a class, maybe you can learn something, maybe you can read a book. So you're starting to take different actions to shift into the awareness that you want to have in your life. And I want to talk just a few minutes about willingness. So this is such a cool scientific study that I read. The study was by David Hawkins in the book Power versus Force. Incredible book. And he shifts his chapters. One chapter is completely scientific, and then the next chapter is completely spiritual, and then it's scientific and spiritual again. And what he was doing was he was doing the scientific study of, amongst other things, the calibration of emotions. And he did that with muscle testing. And so this was done over a period of, I believe, 20 years or something like that. And so he said, well, the scale is from 0 to 1,000. And I'm going to say that 0 is a very low vibration and 1,000 is a very high and positive vibration. And he calibrated all the different emotions. And one of the lowest emotion that he found was shame, then guilt, apathy, grief, fear, desire, anger, pride, until it came to about courage. And he found that at about the level of 200, that's when emotions started to shift from negative vibration to positive vibration. And what's interesting, and why I'm showing you this chart, is look at willingness. Willingness calibrates at 310. So it's above 200. So by simply being willing to shift something in your life, you're already shifting into a positive framework, into a positive vibration, and the actual change of taking action is going to be that much easier. So willingness is a huge component. Look at acceptance, accepting your situation and being okay with that. Stepping into a sense of love, 500. Acceptance with 350. Isn't that I love this chart because I think of it so often that when I go into a place of grief or anger or I'm not really dropping into guilt anymore. I had that a lot when I was in my 20s, but I do drop into anger sometimes, not that much anymore. But anyway, anger is probably my go-to. But when I find myself there, it's like, oh, no, I don't want that low vibration. I am choosing love. I'm choosing acceptance and joy in my life and peace. And that in itself, and I'm willing to do that. Willingness. I'm willing to do that. And when I'm willing to do that, I'm willing to take action. So here we go. Awareness, willingness, action. How do we get to a place of ease? How do we create ease? Well, through practice and repetition. Repetitiously taking action. So say our action is, I'm going to meditate 5 minutes every day, because that is what is shifting me into this different awareness that I want. And every day I sit down on my cushion and I meditate 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes. That's going to shift me into this easeful place. Also, just choosing gratitude. Live with an attitude of gratitude, and that creates ease. Because again, gratitude, and I think we talked about this in another lecture, that gratitude releases oxytocin in the body. And by simply just saying, hey, what am I grateful for today? Hey, I'm grateful I had enough food today. Hey, I'm grateful that my car is running well and I got to work all right. Oh, I am grateful that the sun's shining and giving me warmth today. By simply taking this time and placing attention on the things that are good in your life, the ease will already arise. So if you look at your Master Habits ebook, you will find a orientation worksheet. Fill that out and ask yourself, like, what do I do to align to ease? And what do I do to align to stress? And just to chart it out and become aware of dang, what are the things that I'm doing that are causing me this leveling, overwhelm crap in my life? How? And what do I do to create ease? Oh, I'm doing legs up the wall. That's easeful. I'm going for a walk every morning. That creates some ease in my life. I'm taking time to laugh with my children. Oh, that creates some ease in my life. So it's just becoming aware again, right? It starts with awareness, then willingness, then action. And the last piece for today, I'd like you to pause this recording and read through these questions and write down a few answers about how do you want to design your life? Because really, we become or we are the co-creators of our life. What can you control? And what can't you control? So the other day was just a client was telling me the story of going to Disneyland and there not being so many good food choices. Well, you can't control what's available at Disneyland, really. But what you can control is maybe choosing the best option that's available. You could have also chosen not to go to Disneyland in the first place or to bring your own food, but maybe that was too much work or you didn't want to do that. So what is basically asking yourself, how can I make this the best situation ever? And ask yourself who can support you and who doesn't support you, so that you know who to turn towards when you have a question or need guidance. Do you want to be too busy for what matters to you? Or do you actually just want to do the things that you love to do? Yes, I know the argument is going to come, yeah, but I got to go to work. Well, but you have the choice. Do I just go to work, or do you go to work actually with joy and ease and with a sense of purpose? And wow, I'm going to work to actually do something great. It's a choice. Even if you don't like your work, you can still say, hey, I'm choosing this right now because I'm getting the benefit of money, and that money is going to get me, allow me to get a massage and have fun in life. And I'm choosing to do this, and therefore I'm joyful. Can you create time for what matters most? Who do you want to become? And what habits does that person have? What attitude and orientation does that person have? And then we did something similar earlier in the course, but now is a good time to relook at that, because I'm sure many things have shifted for you as you integrate the habits and as you start to become more attuned and aware of what's going on in your life. It's going to be, the answers will show up differently for you. So check out week 10 in the Student Resources Hub and do your growth work. And so glad again to have been with you, and it's a blast to really record these lessons for you and chat with you about all of this cool stuff. This was another lesson that I truly very much enjoyed. I'm such a fan of mindset shift and working with the mind, and because I feel like, like one of the slides said, the mind has such a powerful effect on our OJs, and the mind has such a powerful effect on how we experience and perceive life. I'm a sucker for working with the mind, and so I hope you got tons out of this lecture. I did, by simply preparing it, so I trust that you did too. So glad to be here with you, and I'll talk to you on the coaching call, and I hope to, I look forward to talking to you. Bye for now. This is Alexandra signing off.